Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Nat from Rainbow Moon, and today I'm doing part 2 in my how to make polymer clay crochet hooks tutorials, and today we're going to start making some base handles. So what a base handle is the base. Now it's either a simple crochet hook like this and you can leave it like this, or it's what I call the base. So on this hook that is covered in stars, what I would call the base is the pink bit, so the actual handle bit that you're holding on to. I'm going to do this video on how we do the first part of the hook, and that's actually attaching the clay to the hook itself, and then in other videos I will talk about how to add embellishments like this, because I do it in a two-step process. So again, the base on this one would be the white, and then the base on this would be the pink. So that's what we're going to go through today. Okay, so what you will need for this tutorial, you will need a rolling pin like this, or a pasta machine, which you can just see slightly off frame here. I use an Atlas pasta machine, or you can use a rolling pin. You will also need either a thin long blade like this or an X-Acto knife. I prefer the long blade, but an X-Acto knife will work as well. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, a shaping tool. So this one is from a cake decorating store. It's got a silicone end. It's like a paintbrush, but it's got a silicone tip on the end. You will need some liquid polymer clay. I use clear, but it doesn't really matter what colour you use, and I use the brand Kato Poly Clay. This is my favourite to work with. You'll also need some masking tape, just any masking tape, any thickness. You'll need some clay. You won't need much, one block will be enough for this. You'll need, I like Sculpey Primo, and today I am using the colour Fuchsia. You also need hooks. I'm going to be demonstrating using this Boye Aluminium 5.25mm and also a Clover 5.5mm. You can use either or, anything that is metal, anything that can go in the oven. You can't use any plastic, so steel and metal hooks are the best. You can also use bamboo, but I'll be demonstrating on an aluminium and a clover. And then these are what I use to stamp the sizes on my hooks. This is by a company called Impressa, and they're little metal sticks. And it's got a number on the end of each one, and these are used for jewelry making predominantly. They're used to turn it upside down on a piece of metal and hammer it into the metal, which leaves the impression of the number, but I use them as a stamping tool on my hooks. It makes a nice clear number. I got these from Spotlight. I'll put all the links down the bottom in the caption where you can get them from. With these ones though, when you first get them, give them a good wash, because they're covered in oil, and if you don't give them a good wash, all that oil is going to transfer onto your clay. And then you'll also need an oven rack, and a oven thermometer, sorry, which is off camera obviously. I use a little convention oven. If you go back to my first video, which I will put up the top here, I go through all the tools that you'll need in crochet hook making with polymer clay. If you go watch that video, I run through everything in more detail there, but these are the things that you'll need for today's tutorial. Okay, the first thing we're going to start doing to make our hooks is we're going to start with the clay. So like I said, I like using Sculpey Primo. This is a 57-gram block, and I'll just show you, for people that are new to clay, a little bit about clay. So clay comes in different brands. This is my preferred brand for making hooks, Sculpey Primo. It's a nice quality professional type clay. It's easy to use, and it comes in a beautiful range of colours. There's a 57 block like this, and then you can get bigger blocks. I'll just show you a bit about the block and what details are on it. So when you turn it to the side, I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but it tells you the colour here, and it also tells you the temperature and how long you want to cook the clay for. So for Sculpey Primo, it's the oven at 130 degrees Celsius or 275 degrees Fahrenheit, and you cook for 30 minutes. Every 6 millimeters. So for my hooks, I cook all my hooks for an hour, so I double that time just to make sure that they're cooked properly all the way through, and I've found no problems with cooking them for an hour, so that's my go-to for cooking all my hooks. I'm going to do a separate video with some extra tips about cooking in the oven. Okay, so this is how your clay comes. It comes wrapped like this. Now we can't unfortunately use the clay straight out of a packet, straight out of a packet like this. We actually need to do something called conditioning. Now conditioning is when we massage and manipulate the clay until it becomes a very soft, malleable consistency. So right now it is rock hard. If we try to sculpt with it straight out of the packet, it's going to be very flaky, and when we cook it in the oven it will just all split and come apart and won't hold its structure. So we need to condition it to get those molecules moving around and fusing together, make it nice and soft. So the first thing you're going to do is open up your pocket, if you haven't already. Now you condition clay every time you use it as well. Open it up and take out the packet. You can keep the packet if you'd like to refer back to it later or to wrap it back up in. Okay, so once you've got your clay fresh out of the packet, what we're going to do is take your blade or your X-Acto knife, and we're just going to cut one bar off, because that's all we need for a hook, is just one. It should be enough. And then we can keep the other 3 for later, so like a chocolate bar. So take your blade or your X-Acto knife, and we're just going to use the ridges in the block and cut straight through one block of clay. Now we can put this clay to the side, and now we're going to be working with this one bar of clay. Now as you can see, it's in a square block, so what we want to do first off is, it's very hard, and it's very stiff. I don't know if you can see that. It's very stiff and hard to manipulate at the moment. So what we want to do is just do what I'm doing now, and just use the warmth of our hands to warm the clay up and get it moving a little bit. So now it's starting to soften, both with me rubbing it around in my hands and pushing it, as well as the warmth in my hands. So you want to rub like this, turn it around, squash it back together, give it another roll in your hands. Squish it down. And what it's starting to do is take shape. So you see I went to roll it, but it's just not. Here we go. It's starting to soften. So as my hands are adding warmth to the clay, you can start rubbing it on your tile. So you're also going to want a ceramic tile or a glass chopping board. You can put some baking paper down on your table and tape it down as like a mat. That works well as well. You can take the glass out of a photo frame and use that. I'm using a ceramic tile. Ceramic tiles can also go in the oven, which is great for polymer clay. You could also use glass chopping board, anything that is a non-stick surface. I find the ceramic tiles the best. They're easy to work with. You can just go to a hardware store and get them, or if you know a tiler, maybe you can get some offcuts, but you want something that's smooth, not with a raised design on it. Okay, so it's starting to soften up. As you can see, it's squashing a bit in my hands, but still quite stiff. So you're going to do this with every bit of clay that you use, even if it's clay that you've used and conditioned before. You want to recondition it, which is a lot quicker than than doing it fresh out the packet. But you want to use your hands as much as you can, because the warmth from your hands is going into the clay and helping it soften. Okay, once you've got it down to a relatively good softness, you can put it down on your tile, and then you can take your rolling pin or your pasta machine now to help you. Now I'll show you first with the rolling pin, and then I'll show you with the pasta machine. So just lie it down, and now you want to use the rolling pin to just roll it out, fold it over like you would with dough, and let's roll it again. Turn it over. See, it will come off, but you can just pick it up and put it back on. And roll it again. Now, so this is doable with a rolling pin. This is the silicone acrylic rolling pin, from Sculpey. But it's just more time consuming and obviously takes more work. So as you can see, it's starting to soften. So we can do it either with the rolling pin, or now I'll show you with the pasta machine. Okay, this is my Atlas pasta machine. As you can see, I've got the Atlas 150. On pasta machines, there's all different brands, but they've all got this dial here, and they turn the dial and it controls how thick and see how the rollers move, how thick and how thin you want to turn your clay or your pasta. Once you've used a pasta machine for clay though, you cannot use it again for food, so just bear that in mind, as raw uncooked polymer clay is toxic. Cooked it's fine, but we're obviously not going to roll cooked clay through a pasta machine, so just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is like to start on the thicker setting, because you don't want to put too much strain on your machine by putting through a big hard lump of clay. You want to start on the thicker setting, so mine is a number 0. So I'm just going to move you over here so I can turn the crank. So a pasta machine has a crank, so I just hit the camera, just 1 minute. So a pasta machine has a crank that you can't see off camera that I'm turning here. So what you want to do is just take your clay and you're going to put it on top of the 2 rollers and turn it through. Take it out the bottom, and it's rolled it nice. Fold it over, put it back in, and continue rolling it. Now, one way of me telling whether or not my clay is conditioned or not is, see this jagged edge on the end? So you can see that the clay isn't conditioned because it's got this really rough edge. So that's what I use as an indicator to know whether or not my clay is being conditioned enough. So I like to turn it, and now I'll put it in on the raw edge, and I will keep going. So I'll do this a few more times on number 0. You fold it over, turn it through, fold it over, turn it through. Okay, they're starting to get softer, so what I'll do is I'll fold it. So let's do number 2 for a bit. Same thing, put it through, fold it, put it through again, keep doing it. As you can see, that if you were doing this with the roller itself, you're going to be here for a while, but with the pasta machine, it's taking a lot of the effort out for me. Now if you're going to use a big bit of clay, or if you're going to be doing lots of hooks, you do a whole bunch of clay conditioning at the beginning to start with. Okay, so now you can't see me, but I'm just turning the dial again. I'm putting it on number 4, which is probably the thinnest that I'm going to go while conditioning clay. I've never used the clay machine, pasta clay machine, past for a thickness of 5 really. Okay, so I'm almost there. It feels really soft. It's easy to manipulate in my hands, and it's just got a great consistency. Now it still does have quite a bit of a jagged edge, so I'm just going to do it for a bit more. Really press that in. Okay, and you're just going to keep going and going. This is really, really important. You really don't want to, see now it's got a beautiful straight edge, so I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do is stop here. Now you don't want to skip this bit. You don't want to go, oh, this is exhausting, I don't want to do it anymore. This is going to lay the foundation for your hook, and whether or not your hook bakes properly, comes out with a nice structure and lasts. So please make sure you do this step. So once you've got it down and conditioned to the thickness, not thickness, the consistency that you like, and it's nice and conditioned, I put mine back onto I like number 2. 2 is what I use to roll out my hook. So we're just going to fold it over and do a number 2. And one more time, because we want to make a nice, we just want to make a nice rectangle shape like this. Okay, so I'm just going to fold it over again and put it through. So there we go. So now we're going to put this aside, and we're going to work on actually making the actual hook itself, getting the actual hook itself prepared for the clay. Okay, now we're going to prepare the hook themselves. So like I said, I have got both an aluminium hook, this one is by Boye, and a clover hook, Clover Amour. So first thing I'm going to show you how to do is you need to remove this rubber handle from the clover hooks before we use them. We cannot wrap the clay around the rubber, and the rubber cannot go in the oven, so we need to take this off. Now please be careful with this part. I've really hurt myself before, so you do not want to use an X-Acto knife for this. Been there, done that. You want to use a pair of scissors. So if you've never seen it before, inside the clover hook, this aluminium runs down the hook until about here. Okay, then it stops. And on the end is this rubber, has no aluminium inside of it still, but this part does. So where the hook ends, you just want to take your scissors and carefully cut the rubber end off. So there is the core. I don't know if it's focusing on that. I can't see my camera when I'm working on it. So we just take that off, and you can see the core inside. Now you want to take the tip of your hook and you want to put it down on your tile and then push. Oh, sometimes they move, sometimes they don't. If it doesn't move, get your scissors again. Put your hook like this, and now we're going to carefully cut up the side of the hook. So in between the steel and the actual rubber itself, we're going to cut the rubber just like this. Very hard to show you on camera. Very carefully. See, starting to come away. There we go. So just take a little bit more of the rubber off. See the core there. Put it back down on your tile with the tip and push, and it will, oh, not very elegant. There we go. So you see how the handle, there's the hook part of your hook. It's moved down. There's the tip. So now you just want to get your scissors. There might be an easier way of doing this. There might be a quicker way. I mean, obviously, Clover don't want you doing this. Ah, there you go. So this is what, if you haven't seen it before, is what is underneath your Clover hook. They have got the size the size stamped on it on the inside as well. So now you've got your clover hook or your aluminium hook. Now they're both exactly the same, so the next step and onwards from here is exactly the same for both hooks. So I'm going to continue working on the clover hook, but just remember it applies for all hooks from now on. Doesn't matter which one you're using, even bamboo. Okay, so now your hook is ready. We've taken the rubber off, or it was aluminium to start with. Now some people, you can actually go ahead and what some artists do is they'll just attach the clay straight to the hook itself. Now what I find is that it can create a lot of air bubbles between the metal and the clay, which can cause a problem down the track when you come to baking, because those air bubbles will rise inside the oven. And then it is very hard to get rid of them, close to impossible. I'll do a troubleshooting video, because there are some techniques that I've come up with how you can still use a hook that's got an air bubble in, but you really want to avoid that best you can. So because the metal is slippery, the clay doesn't want to adhere to it, so this is where your masking tape comes in. So we want to get our masking tape and our clear polymer clay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the hooks and we're going to wrap the hooks with the masking tape down the actual handle everywhere that you want the clay to go. Now some people like to start the handle from here and just have this bit with clay and still have the finger hold from the crochet hook itself and the number there, so then when you crochet you're still using the armrest. I don't like finger rest, I don't like to do that. I like to cover it completely from here to here, but you can also do it from there to there. The process is going to be exactly the same. So decide where you want the clay. Now you'll also tell, just quickly I'll just show you, that a clover hook is a lot shorter than an aluminium hook as well. Same technique, doesn't matter. So now first thing we want to do is you want to take your masking tape, take your hook, and starting where the edge of your clay is going to be, you want to wrap your handle in the masking tape. So I'll just start there, cut it off, stick it down, nice straight line. So that's as far as I'm going to let my clay go down. Now we want to put it on a slight angle, because you're going to wrap it around the hook. So just wrap and turn till you get to the end. Rip it off. Now you've got this tiny bit still spare, so I'll just stick it back on and do a straight edge and rip it off. So now your hook has got masking tape on it where the clay is going to be. So I'll just show you on this clover hook. The masking tape is where I want the clay to be. So underneath every crochet hook is what I've done. So I'm going to show you the same. Whoops. On this hook really quickly. So again, stick it down so it's nice and straight, then reattach it, wrap it up, reattach at the end. There we go. It's going to show you how some people do their hooks. So they want to start their clay from here. If that's something that you want to do too, it's personal preference. So you're just doing exactly the same thing, except you're leaving your finger rest out. And just wrap it so I do it on an angle so it goes around the cylinder of the hook, which always leaves a gap at the end. Now you do want to make sure this is as flat and as nice and flat as possible so it doesn't create any bumps. So there we go. So whether or not you cover the whole hook or leave the finger rest out, it's up to you, but this process is all exactly the same. So I'll put this one to the side. Once you've got them ready to go, this is where we'll get our clear polymer clay. So this is liquid form and this clay is solid form. So that's the difference. This is just liquid, this is solid, this needs to be cured in the oven, exactly the same as this. The reason that I use a liquid polymer clay is it's just going to add a bit of a fuse grip to the masking clay tape. So when you cook this in the oven, this is going to bake and adhere to the actual clay and to the masking tape as well. I just feel it creates that extra solid bonding to the hook so it doesn't slide off. But if you wanted to skip the liquid polymer clay, that is fine. It should be enough just with the masking tape for the clay to really adhere to, but I like to go that extra bit and add the liquid polymer clay. So all you do is take it out. I just got to hit mine to make sure that it comes down to the tip. Then we're just going to put a very thin line. You don't need much of this. So a very thin line of the clay, and using your finger, you just want to rub it around the whole hook so it's all nice and wet. Just needs a very thin coating of clay. So that's it, it's just got a thin coating of clay. You can put that down. Show you again on this one. Thin strip. It's got the consistency of like that, it was called clag, thick crafting glue. Looks a bit like that too. Now you can get polymer clay, liquid polymer clay in all sorts of colours. Not just this looks white, but it will cook clear, but you can get it in all different colours. Doesn't matter for this purpose what you're going to do. So one thing I forgot to tell you that you need is baby wipes. Baby wipes are great. Now you'll see, for just cleaning that all off, and they're good for the surfaces and cleaning everything else as well. So just get that liquid polymer clay on, and we're finished with that. Now we've got the hooks covered. Now we need our clay again. So what you want to do is roll your clay out. I like to use it at about 2 millimeters. So off camera I'm just rolling it again till it's a nice size like this. So it is enough that is going to wrap around the hook. That's all you need. So just enough that it's just going to wrap around the hook. Don't worry about all these jagged edges, we're going to clean that all up. So from now on I'm just going to continue working on the Clover hook, but everything could be exactly the same for your Boye hook, okay? So I'm just going to put this to the side. Okay, so you got your hook, it's covered in the polymer clay. Now we've got the clay here. So now we want to get our blade. I'm going to put the hook down here and we're just going to tie it up. So just going to go and get rid of all this jagged edge, make a nice clear edge there, and I also like to measure up the tip so it's nice and straight. So I'll put that down and I will measure it to here. Anything that you do here that makes it a little bit easier for you is the best thing to do. And then so that you can rest your hook on the clay now. And that's it. So our clay is ready. This we don't need, so that's our scrap. Now what we're going to do is you're going to take your hook. I like to put it face down so the hook side is facing down. So what I have done is turned it so it's facing down like that, and then you want to take the bottom edge of your clay, just lift it up with your finger like this and stick it down to the hook. Okay, so it's stuck down to the hook. Now we're going to roll it up until it joins itself. So see, I just go around once. So once it's completely wrapped, you can take your blade again and you can just cut off that excess, and there you go, your hook is completely covered in the clay. So now what we want to do is you just want to stick it all down. Now don't worry about it being perfectly flat. We're going to straighten this all out, so it doesn't matter if it's lumpy. It's actually better if you give it a real squeeze, because we don't want any air bubbles in there. So see, you can see an air bubble. Just want to pinch that, get rid of that air bubble. So once you've got it all nice and stuck, using your masking tape as a line so it doesn't creep up, stick it down at the end. Okay, so once you've got it all nice and stuck down to the hook, just going to move this to the side. Now we're going to put it down, and what we're going to do is we're going to roll it on here. So we're just going to roll it like a sausage and start getting all the bumps out. Don't worry about this end at the moment. We will tidy that up. Right now you're just helping it stick to the hook. So you can feel with your finger where the edge of the hook is. You don't want to go past that, otherwise you're going to have this flimsy bit on the end that doesn't have the hook inside of it. You can use your hand to smooth it down. Use your hands as tools, they're the best tools. You don't want to go past the tip because this bit won't have the core in it, and that bit's going to be flimsy. So the clay isn't strong enough to create a hook on its own. It's really using this core for the strength. So don't try and not go too far past the end. Okay, so if you can see, you can use it as a guide to see, look at it down the shaft, see if there's any lumps or air bubbles. I like to just run my hands over it like this, using my hand as a tool. Okay. See how the ceramic tile just makes it really smooth. Now I don't know if you can see, but there's a slight air bubble there. Now you want to make sure you get rid of all the air bubbles. So this is where it's handy to have an X-Acto knife as well. So you just want to prick the air bubble with your X-Acto knife, make little dots, and then smooth it. Now what that's done is allowed the air to escape through those slits, and then roll it again. Just get that air out, and then you can just smooth it down. There we go. So it's all about, now this takes practice. I can get it done this quickly because I've done this 1,000 times, but at first it's going to be all wompy, I don't even know what those, wobbly and all over the place. I was there when I first started. It starts to become more natural as you go, but as tile really helps with this. So keep just working. It's all learning to begin with as well. Your first hooks aren't going to be perfectly smooth. Your main thing is just making sure, really make sure there's no air bubbles in your clay. Now you can use the light, really helps. Now also clay is really attracted to all sorts of dust and stuff. So I don't know if you can see there. There's a little tiny bit of something in there. So you just want to dig that out and get rid of that now, because that's going to be a lot harder to get out later. Okay, so once you're finished with that, see this edge? It's all messy. Now, some people like to cut a real blunt edge, but I like to have my hooks taper to the point, because I find when I'm crocheting, I crochet right on the edge, so I'll hold my hand right on the edge here, so I like it to taper down. But some people hold it back here, so you can just put a straight edge. It's a personal preference again. So I'll show you first. Get your X-Acto knife or your blade, one or the other here, and we want to get it, and we just want to trim it up. So you just want to go around the hook and just trim off that excess. Using the masking tape as a guide, so you can just see my masking tape there, that's fine because I'm going to roll it again. So what I like to do is just smooth it down because I like it to taper in a bit. So I'm going back over the top of the masking tape. And I'm just smoothing it down. Now you can leave it like that as you like, if you like. I just like it all nice and smooth. You can push your fingers into the clay if you wanted to make an indent in it for the finger and thumb. And then rub it. This is where the silicone tip's going to come in handy. So now I'll take my hook. And it just helps smooth it down nicely. It's just pushing the clay so it's all nice and straight. And then on the edge. So just getting it off the aluminium or steel. There we go. So that's it. Once it's all nice and straight, now you can stamp it. So this is when you get your stamps. Find the size. This one is a 5mm. And now I'm just going to use it to stamp a 5. And it's ready for baking. Okay, now we're ready to bake. This is how I like to bake my hooks. I've made this tent out of aluminium. And then on top of my baking tray, I have an accordion piece of paper. It's just computer paper that I have folded into an accordion. It just helps keep the hooks from lying flat on the baking tray. So I'll just show you quickly what I mean with the computer paper. You can just use any plain paper. So just get 2 sheets of plain computer paper and fold them into what you would make like a fan or an accordion. I find 2 sheets of paper is thick enough. So that way, if I just show you here, the hooks can sit supported instead of sitting flat. If you sit them flat like this on the oven tray, what will happen is that the bottom of the hook will get a flat base, and it's very hard to get rid of that. So you just place your hook on the accordion piece of paper, and then just using a piece of aluminium, just fold 2 ends so that they can stand up and use it as a tent over the top. What this does is prevents the hook from burning or getting too hot if you've got an element on your oven that heats straight onto the top. Once that's done, you can just pop it all into the oven and bake it for an hour. And once it's finished, just take it out carefully. It'll be really hot and the hook itself will be hot too, so just let it cool right down before you try touching it. And that's it, that's your finished hook. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you continue watching now, you'll see me making the hook both with mixed colours or on a shorter hook. So keep watching.